what we found works, and the collective work that we do in agriculture together. So I'm just going to pass it off. There's 4 of us today, and I'll pass it off to my team from left to right, and we can give a brief introduction. So Steph, do you want to go?
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Finklia. My pronouns are she, her, and they, them. I am a very small urban farmer in Omaha, Nebraska. I own and operate Black Chick Farm, which does prairie-scaping, edible gardens, and houseplants. And I am a founding member of Omaha Sunflower Cooperative, which is a BIPOC-led for-profit organization that aims to center the small farmer while uplifting the community nutritionally and economically. Alex.
Yeah, hey everybody, my name is Alex O'Hanlon. And I helped to found the Omaha Sunflower Cooperative with Stephanie a few years ago. Very fun. And then also worked with Kate a few years prior to that. And we kind of started up the Blazing Star Seed Cooperative and have built that out over the past few years with a lot of participation from our co-panelists, Stephanie and Katie, and then also work with Katie on the Free Farm Syndicate, which we started in 2017 and have been building out over time as well. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you. Katie, I'll throw it over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Bettine. As you all were talking, I'm just like, I'm standing on shoulders of giants, like that saying that people talk about when big things that you're a part of have happened before you. And I feel like I've stepped into Free Farm Syndicate, which I'm affiliated with, and the Blazing Star Seed Cooperative. And it's nice to hear just like how connected we all are in our intersections. I've been in Omaha now for 3 years, and I've been really excited to be in the urban farming space. And I'm excited to let you know about Free Farm Syndicate and some of the good and challenging parts of cooperating in spaces like that.
Awesome. I'm Kate Kahi, and I live in Southwest Iowa in the Les Hills, and I have a small farm here called Mullen Hill Farm. And I participate in the Blazing Star Seed Cooperative and have been involved and collaborated in various urban ag projects across the river in Omaha, where I'm from. And off the farm, I work for the Center for Rural Affairs doing education for beginning farmers. Okay, so we wanted to start out with a question for you all, and we are curious to know, what is your favorite seed? Feel free to also let us know why. We will also put our answers in the chat, but if you could quickly, as we get into the nitty-gritty of our presentation, take a minute. Unless you're driving, someone mentioned they're in the car on Zoom, please do not do this, then be safe. Let us know what your favorite seed is. Drop it in the chat. Ooh, beets, cool shape. Favas.
I wish you could like comments in Zoom.
Yeah. Okay,
and just be liking them all.
I just want to echo calendula because that's been one that, like, I think it reminds me of like adorable little earrings or just like some little fairy like house building. I don't know.
Ooh, Calypso bean. That was the 2022 seed of the year.
Yeah.
That's nice to see.
Oh, bitter gourd. Yes. Those are so cool.
Yeah, we've recently been processing some bachelor button seed, and tell you what, they're not big.
Last gem corn. Yes. Super gorgeous. Carrot seeds. Do you eat the carrot seeds? Denise? Or do you just like that they're crunchy? Shard. Yeah, beaten shard seeds.
Kate, we processed some tobacco this year, right? And
Yeah,
like, the
I brought
seeds are
some.
yeah, and the seeds are like super small,
Yeah,
right?
so tiny.
But you're saying like the pods are really
I just
cool?
really enjoyed like the process of, yeah, I had never really processed the pods before. And I kind of got this exact thing where I could crack it with my fingernail and then like scoop. Like if I cracked it this certain way, then I found that all the seeds would like fall out in this like perfect way. And that's what I always love getting to the point of doing. And I'm
Sweet
like,
success.
yes, yes. Okay, yes. Yes, the carrots are crunchy. That's what you meant, Denise. Yes. Sweet and crunchy carrots. Okay, thanks so much, everyone. That was fun.
Yeah,
Okay,
I feel like we could just make a whole presentation out of talking about seeds.
just talking about seeds and seed pods and nerding out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to continue and roll through with this next one. We are talking about cooperatives today. That was one of the tracks of this conference, and we were talking about how we have a lot of that going on in our area here, new baby cooperatives, I will call them. And so this is just sort of a definition that we came up with. You know, cooperatives can be a lot of things, but we're essentially working together and sharing resources and labor. When it comes to us as farmers, we're sharing food, seeds, and these are some of the sort of elements of cooperatives that we're looking at. Today, we are going to talk about 3 different cooperatives or collectives that are currently functioning out of Omaha, Nebraska in the urban agriculture sphere, although we expand to rural farmers as well. And those are Free Farm Syndicate, the Blazing Star Seed Cooperative, and the Omaha Sunflower Cooperative. Does anyone want to chat about these elements? Should I keep rolling?
I take that.
All right.
Some elements of cooperatives that across the board they can all share is that there's mutual interest or similar values. There's a baseline for understanding so that everybody can spread that mission, collect more members, so that everybody can move throughout obtaining that mission and reaching for that mission. Creating and developing a safe space for acknowledgement, trust, communication to exist and evolve. Collective decision making, wherein it's a democratic decision making process, and every person bringing what they can or want and are able to share toward a mutual effort or overall goal. Anybody want to elaborate?
I just think for myself, like those, I had fun contributing. I enjoyed contributing to that slide. Because I think the relationship part of cooperatives is something that I find most just like educational or rewarding to be a part of. And relationships are a big part of it. And a lot of these things help develop and form those. So.
Yeah, I will say that one of the elements on here that I really like is this idea that the group has the answers rather than the individual. So any group or any project moving forward, any cooperative, knowing that you all bring your individual answers to the table, you bring your individual perspectives, but truly the right answer or the answer to move forward with is one in which the group comes to together.
Yeah, and I guess I'll say like something about cooperatives that kind of like builds upon that, Kate, is that I've definitely done some like more like private individual farming endeavors, and they felt so hard because you're doing so many roles. And a lot of these cooperatives that we're talking about today are kind of based in mutual aid. And so that's something that like you just can't do by yourself. So I'd say like an element for cooperatives is that it makes big projects possible. And so this kind of like every person bringing what they can, want to, or are able to in this mutual effort. It's kind of like if you're just painting a picture with one color, you wouldn't have as much vibrancy. It wouldn't get the point across as extensively or as like to the point. And so like being able to had this thing where the group has the answers. Well, having multiple perspectives on something can make it so that the answer is like a lot more dynamic and meets a lot more people's needs or a lot more people's like interests. And then to that same point, like having so many hands, and even if somebody can only show up to water for 1 hour a week, when you're farming on like vacant lots in the city, that's huge. And that makes something that might have just been an idea or something that you beat yourself up over not being able to accomplish, now it's accomplishable. So I'd say like my favorite element of cooperatives, again, is just that it makes these big projects possible.
Yeah,
Is this-
Omaha Sunflower Cooperative was established in 2021. Prior to that, it was lots of dinners and conversation between Alex and I, where we talked about what we might want to do and talk to other people about what they might want to do and getting something together. And then we finally had our first events and established a name in 2021.
Yeah, and then
Oh, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say the Blazing Star Seed Cooperative was like a cute foundation, but Kate and I attended some seed saving schools in 2018 and came back just like super inspired, and we're able to support each other in bouncing those ideas and bringing more people on to kind of build that out. And I'll also just talk about Free Farm real quick. We started that in 2017, kind of from that perspective of like, you know, wanting to create food access directly. And I will say that the first year of Free Farm Syndicate had a lot of free farm stands that featured like a carrot and a cucumber. But now, you know, we go through thousands of pounds of food every week. So it's great.
Okay, so Omaha Sunflower Cooperative's mission is to replenish, strengthen, and elevate the BIPOC community and the members of the cooperative with community-sustained nutritional and financial support. We are committed to fostering holistic relationships between local BIPOC growers, farmers, and business owners to reclaim and cultivate our collective cultural wisdom. Excuse me, which is a big mouthful, basically to say that we center the small farmers, so providing space for them to sell, connect with other business owners to sell their products. We're working on doing wholesale this year. And just a way for the community to also have access to healthy food in an area that is experiencing some food apartheid. And a way for us to grow each other as businesses, share some of those financial burdens, share some of the work, as Alex and Kate were saying earlier, and to make it a little bit easier to enter a business endeavor. Great. So 2021 was when we first got started. Our first event was in Little Bohemia in their Bohemian Gardens, which is an area in South downtown Omaha. And we filled up their greenhouse with fall seedlings and small house plants. And I would say that it wasn't super, we didn't make a lot of money, but we got our name out there. And I think that helped a lot with getting membership. I think people loved to talk about the co-op and the idea of it. But once we started moving, that got people more interested in joining. The middle picture is one of the first markets that we attended. And that was just Alex and I growing produce from our yards and collectively going to market together. We started as a pay what you wish, just to get us going, get food out to the community. And then the last picture there is at a food sovereignty event. We did pretty well. We didn't take any measurements or record any poundage of food that we've collected, but that's a next year thing. All right. We held a wisdom share this year. where we invited the community to come and utilize soil, pots, free seeds so they could start their own seeds, experience how to do that, gain some knowledge and wisdom through their community network, meet other people within the community who are interested in doing those things, learn from each other. We also attended a seed share and helped organize that effort. We had a plant sale early in the spring, sold thousands of seedlings to the community in an area where they don't have any kind of nursery or hardware store where you can go and purchase those types of things. And the last slide is in Little Bohemia again, where we started selling more of those seedlings and a little bit of spring onions. So this was the year, this past year, we went to market collectively. Several other members of the cooperative donated or put forth their contributions of produce that they grew. They got a portion of their sales. The cooperative took about 15% just so that we could keep going, promoting, organizing, etc. This first photo is us at NCAP, where we have produce, and then we have a beekeeper as well. So he brought some honey, which was really great. Because it was all these markets are Nurture Omaha markets from Whispering Roots. They do pop-up markets in areas where farmers markets don't happen, and mostly so that it's accessible to folks who use SNAP, WIC, senior vouchers, that type of thing. So it was really a treat for folks to have honey available at an affordable price. The middle photo is us at Food Day Omaha. We won the Producer of the Year award. I mean, it's mostly popularity based, I think. So I think we just spread the word really well. But it's still something I'm really proud of because we got out there and did it. If we hadn't made moves at all, that couldn't have been possible. The last photo is us at Bugs. We were able to collectively raise through the co-op enough funds and a SARE grant, one of the travel grants, to be able to take 5 co-op members to Atlanta for the Black Urban Growers Conference, where we met Leah Penniman and Naima and learned a lot from other Black farmers, which was really important to be able to see ourselves represented in who is doing the teaching. So that was also something I was really proud of, that we were able to accomplish that. We also had help from a nonprofit organization called the Big Garden. They let us utilize their vehicle and helped pay for gas. So that was nice. Up in the corner, that's us having a work day at our Decatur lot. It's about an acre in North Omaha that was, I can officially say now, donated space by another nonprofit out here in Omaha, City Sprouts. It has 3/4 of the land is already being utilized by New American farmers. Most of them are from East Africa. So we support them by not asking that they pay for anything. We're trying to figure out ways, there's a little bit of a language barrier, trying to figure out ways to bring them into the cooperative. But that's going to take some time and a little determination. Within that is the area that we were growing on, which I really loved. One of our members, Dex of Manifest Acres, designed this grow space because we had some deer pressure there. So that ring that you see is dill. And then in the middle were some of the crops that the deer like to get at. Okra and some tender greens, and it worked really, really well. The deer didn't touch anything within that circle. And then the other photo is Alex and one of our co-op members, Avery, at their lot in Iowa, where we did some collective farming to take things to market. All right, and then that last photo is us doing some strategic planning for 2023. You can follow us on Instagram at sunflower_co-op, and you can email us at grow@oscoops.com.
Awesome. we are going to dive in and just keep rolling here with our next cooperative, which is the Blazing Star Seed Cooperative. We are a very active yet still newish seed saving collective of farmers and gardeners, also situated in eastern Nebraska and southwest Iowa. We have three main components of our cooperative. We have a seed bank. We have seed saving education that we offer to the community for free, and cooperative sharing that goes with sharing of the seeds and also sharing of land access and working together to do coordinated growing out. And those are just some pictures of seeds. So the components that we do and how we work together for the goal of saving locally adapted and climate resilient seed that is grown here. We do education events, we do coordinated growing, as I mentioned, seed processing, where we all come together to process the seed distribution within the cooperative, and then outside of that to the community. And we have shared seed processing tools. The educational components that we have really grew out of, Alex mentioned, Blazing Star came out of some training in seed saving as farmers, us being really jazzed and excited about the idea and recognizing the critical importance of having local seed. We were working with other nonprofit organizations at the time, and we really wanted to sort of move this cooperative work into like a really grassroots community-based space to make sure that folks, whether if they weren't part of those nonprofits or whatever, they could participate and engage and really open it up to farmers and gardeners. But along the way, we have had support by various nonprofit organizations. So those are mentioned here. So in the education space, we have like two main things that we do. We have Seed School, which we usually offer every year. We're super excited. We just got an awesome grant for our cooperative. And so we are gearing up this next year to probably offer 2 seed schools. These look different, but usually they're a 2-day, like day-long, weekend-long training. We have food, we have music, we bring everyone together. We talk about botany, we talk about the actual hands-on seed saving process. We talk about planting for seed saving, and we just really do a lot of seed processing and a lot of hand skills. And we come together to just talk about why we're doing this and why it's important. And we've developed different curriculum, and we have different facilitators that do that. And it's just like, I love it so much. It just like fills me with so much joy to do this offering as part of the co-op. And then we also have a seed share, which is bottom lined by nonprofit organizations here in Omaha. And that is a time where all of our packaged seed, folks bring seed, and then the cooperative, we package like a ton of seed and we bring that local seed, and it's all free. So folks come, and from our seed bank, they get free seed that we have that has been grown out and saved. We do germination tests and like changing our labels every year and making them better. And yeah, kudos to Alex for like all those little beautiful little details and stuff. These are just some pictures, seed processing screens. We make a lot of handouts and like zines and other things for our educational events. We're all about free shared resources. We have a very large Google Drive that we share among the cooperative members with all types of seed saving resources. And now I'm going to hand it off to Alex to talk about the other education pieces that we do.
Had myself on mute. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah. So I think like one thing that we say about that I say a lot about the seed co-op is that it's like education and infrastructure to create the foundation for a robust seed saving culture. So we have the education as far as like the seed saving or the seed school. And then we also have the seed of the year. And I guess I just want to point out too, that like when Kate and I came back from that trip, that seed saving class, a big thing that we did is we went and we met with the Omaha Public Library, has a seed librarian who is in charge of the seed library. And we were kind of like, we know that you're doing something. How can we support it? And she identified that there needed to be education because people were the idea of the seed library was that people check seed out and then bring it back to share. But there was all these steps missing in between that she didn't feel like she had the capacity to fill in. And so we designed the seed cooperative to fill those steps in. So the first thing we did was the seed of the year, which is where we like do this poll online and everyone votes on what the seed of the year should be. And then we get a bunch of that seed, usually from Meadowlark Hearth Farms in Nebraska, that has been saving seed for a very long time. And so we'll get seed from them, and then we make that seed available along with growing and saving guides. And like, we check in, you know, throughout the season with little like Instagram reels or something and be like, hey, your beans should, like I was saying, the Calypso bean was the 2022 seed of the year. And so people could be like, you know, so we'll do like the check-ins to be like, hey, your Calypso beans should look like this right now. Start eating them. And then 6 weeks later, we'll be like, they should look like this right now. Stop harvesting them and leave them on so that you can save them for seed. So that's kind of where the Seed of the Year program goes. And then the idea there is that we're kind of like giving people just this little taste of getting involved in the coordinated growing. Like, what would it be like to grow out 10 bean plants that then produced beans for this seed bank? So that's kind of where the Seed of the Year goes. And then we also have the seed processing days. So the coordinated growing that starts in, you know, December, January, when everyone's planning their farms. And we kind of get together and say like, hey, you know, Stephanie, why don't you grow 10 San Marzano tomatoes? And why don't you grow 10 San Marzano tomatoes, and I'll grow 10 San Marzano tomatoes. And then Kate and Katie can each grow 10 of the Mary Reynolds tomatoes. So that way we're using multiple locations to meet our minimum population. And we're also able to establish achieve our isolation distances. So for example, that picture of Avery and I that Stephanie showed with the Omaha Sunflower Co-op, that was a picture from a lot that is out in Crescent, Iowa. So some of those things like squash or peppers that maybe you wouldn't be so sure about in an urban environment, we grew some stuff out there because we knew that we would get that isolation distance a lot easier. So anyways, we do this coordinated growing, and then we get all these people to grow out all this seed. And we also, just another way that these like cooperatives are collaborating, we use the free farm stand as a way that it's like, hey, Stephanie, if you're growing out 10 San Marzano tomatoes, you're probably going to have way too many San Marzano tomatoes. So why don't you bring down some of those extra San Marzanos to the free farm stand, and then you can grab whatever you need at the free farm stand, since you're giving so much growing space to this seed saving effort. Okay, so that's how we try to like make sure that folks can grow stuff out and also have access to all different types of vegetables. And then in October, we host these seed processing days where we have all the materials that you need to come down and process. And a lot of times we know how to process seeds, so we just educate people on how to do that. But sometimes we don't, and we do this process here of like figuring out, well, okay, we don't know how to process Indian plantain, like let's figure that out. And then we take notes so that in the future we can have those notes and reflect back on them so that we can move through the process a little bit faster. There's Stephanie doing some germ tests, 100%. That's why she's smiling. In the next picture, you can see we're rinsing some eggplant seeds and squash seeds. What else we got here? That's Dex from Manifest Acres, real excited about some sunflower seeds. And then the other picture is more eggplant processing. These are all pictures from this past seed processing day. Got some echinacea seeds from one of our seed processing days that we did at Fabric Lab. Last year we did 4 seed processing days. This year we did 5. And then there's some more folks processing eggplant seeds. We had a lot of eggplants this year. What else do we got? Any other pictures? Okay,
Yeah,
I'll let Katie go ahead and jump in on Free Farm.
Yeah, I just want to add really quick that the seed processing day model, I think, is so wonderful because it literally is a whole day. We have lunch, we have breakfast, snacks, and the community just really comes together, and we're doing this hands-on work together all day long. And sometimes it's cold. We get a big space though, and we make sure, so we can be messy, and it's just a really fun time, and it's just a great addition to like more of that seed school. This is all hands-on that we're doing together, and then we have our seed ready to go into the seed bank, and then to also be packed to give out to the seed share. Okay.
Yes, there's so much to the seed co-op. Would love to talk about it more, but we got to hear about Free Farm.
Yeah, let's go Free Farm. Oh, you're muted, Katie. Try again.
Thank you. I wanted to say normally we don't talk this fast, but sometimes we do when we've got time limits. Yeah, so Free Farm Syndicate is definitely and can be a part of the Blazing Star Seed Cooperative and the Sunflower Co-op. As like you're starting to get an idea, we all really work together in different ways. So in 2017, Free Farm started to exist. I wasn't there in the beginning, but as I have like come to hear the story and know, it was just a group of community individuals that attended like a public community event and voiced similar like mutual interests and concern about food in our metro area. So in that way, it's really cool that it has come to be just from that. And I love hearing that story and to see where it is this year in 2022, and also as the potential it has is really exciting. Yeah, so it started small, but there are a lot more pieces a part of it now, and I will get into detail about those. So yes, in this slide, here's an idea of what you could expect from Free Farm Syndicate. In the growing season, we have 2 farm stands. We've normally only had one, and that's the Bancroft Street Market that you can see Courtney underneath the yellow tent and Alex sitting down. It's kind of like in the back there, you can see Alex, but it's kind of, it can be a community thing. It can be grab a chair and sit down. It can be come and get produce and leave. And you can also, like Alex was saying, drop off produce, exchange produce. It's very much an exchange. And it's nice to talk to neighbors and build those relationships. So on the opposing side, you see the Sunday Free Farm stand, and that happens at our Myrtle lot. And I'll get into the like structure of the next slide will be like the structure of where these spaces are coming from. But this Myrtle lot image is a plot that we do grow on, and it is where one of our free farm stands exists on Sunday from 10 to noon as well. And yeah, I think also it's interesting to see the difference. This was a first year picture of a free farm stand, and then Courtney at the Bancroft stand. It's been in function for a long time. It has an aesthetic, it has a look about it, and it has a flow. So as these things come to exist, they definitely evolve. Yeah, so the structure, how we do it, it's quite expansive. And when you like look at it and say it, sometimes it can seem straightforward, but there's a lot to it and a lot in the background. We have 5 lots that we grow collectively on, and they're rented through the city, or they're owned by neighbors or volunteers or free farm themselves. And making it work is like an every season effort. In the cold months, core volunteers that are really leaders and guide what's grown and the act of growing it and maintaining. In those cold months, we come together, we write things down on boards, we write things down, we write things everywhere. But it's a big idea session, hopes and dreams kind of stuff come out, along with talking about this is a point in time where money is a topic as well. It's kind of where the money flows and can start to flow. And that's a time where we figure out how we can utilize it. Yeah, so let's see. In all of that, like prep and planning in the cold months, it takes us into hopefully being prepared for the planting, the harvesting, the transporting, and closing sites in the summer and the fall. And that really comes down to communicating with core volunteers of our capacity and our availability to show up and lead people through those kind of like big activities. Yeah. So how the stand exists is, like I said, 2 times a week, Saturday and Sunday, and it really is to distribute food from our lots, local nonprofits, and our neighbors and backyard growers. It is a great way. These stands are a great way to move food and reduce food waste altogether. And then Free Farm is also and can be a really critical component of the Blazing Star Seed Cooperative. It all starts with a seed, and these like lots that exist in Omaha that are pretty like vastly separated from each other can be great locations to be like, all right, I'm going to use this lot to grow out this seed. You're going to use that lot to grow out that seed. And it's been like wildly educational and beautiful to observe like seed produce on these lots be marked, grown out, and then set aside and brought to seed processing days. And I've only really been able to observe this, like I said, I've only been here 3 years, but in that amount of time to see the difference and how that has kind of grown and become more of like a structure and an understanding. And then the relationships that we build are a sweet source of energy for us to keep going and do what we do. So these pictures, this is like a slide of day to day. It's kind of a little bit of hodgepodge, but that's really like hands in the dirt kind of picture. A lot of it comes down to like watering and coordinating volunteer days. So the structure of urban ag, I'm not sure if it looks the same for everyone, but for us, it's very mobile. We have like mobile wash stations. We have mobile tools. We're hauling compost. Like it's very much a lot of transportation and dispersed. But so for that, it's a lot of coordinating and showing up when and where we can to plant and sow and do all of these things. Let's see. Okay, and then the next slide is like things around the day to day. So like I was talking about with the coordinating on the left far side, you'll see the boards and the paper where some of like these ideas come to be, and we can like track where we're at. And towards the middle, you'll see images of a cold storage refrigerator, an early picture of a seed bank, and onions and garlic being dried and cured. And those are all examples also of community partnerships that we have. So Reformed, where seed processing occurs, is a collective artist space in Omaha that we share space with and is super useful and helpful to more than Free Farm Syndicate, but supports us in a lot of ways. And then a locally, like a centrally located high school lets us store onions and garlic for drying and curing. So it's these like networks that Alex and like first founders of Free Farm Syndicate have built that really like have given this momentum. And then on the far side, sorry, were pictures of like fundraising and like fun times that like we're able to have at Free Farm Syndicate. And so yeah, just kind of like conclusive. And I hope that in my speaking, you got that Free Farm Syndicate is an immersive community engagement. It's resource and infrastructure development and sharing with so many people and organizations. And it's also like very hands-on and experiential in what you're doing and what you're learning.
Okay, we are going to dive in here. We are running a little short on time. We want to make sure you have questions. I'm just going to go ahead and offer up that if you have questions that are bubbling up for you now, feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat. And so we kind of start a log. We really want to make space for your dialogue. The next portion of this session, we are going to go over, like, we gave you a background of each cooperative. So really quickly, we're going to talk about like what we do together, how we share, what that looks like a little bit more. And so we broke it down into these categories. We'll try to touch a little bit on each one of funding, shared infrastructure, accessing land together, tools and equipment, and shared labor and shared markets. So Alex, do you want to roll with funding or do you want me to keep going? So we're going to talk really briefly about how we do some of the stuff to fund all of this incredible work that we're talking about in farming.
So I can go ahead, yeah, and roll with that. So like I said, a lot of these are like based in the mutual aid idea. So one thing with a cooperative is that there is like a lot of administrative work. And so with the fundraising, we do it kind of a couple ways. So like for Free Farm and Blazing Star, like everything is free. And that is like a hard boundary that everything be free and available. And so we raise funding through like grants, and then we also do fundraisers. You might have seen that picture of like the Onion Games. But so we raise as much money as we can, and then we create an organizational budget, and then we raise as much money as we can to meet that overhead. And then anything that comes that we have in excess of the overhead, we just try to allocate and share those resources. So some of the things that we'll do is like we'll redistribute funds, or if like an organization like isn't as set, like Free Farm has definitely given money to the Blazing Star Seed Cooperative or like supported seed processing days in the past because we had a structure that was ready to fundraise and the seed co-op wasn't really ready to fundraise yet. So that's one way that we share funding, is we try to make sure that folks are getting compensated for like education. Like we obviously don't have enough money to, I don't know if it's obvious, but we don't have enough money to just compensate people hourly for all the time and effort they put in. If we did, we'd all be millionaires and that would be sweet. But we don't have that. So we try to compensate people though for like as much like educational stuff. So like with the seed processing days, we try to, share like those educational resources. And then once somebody is in a place to be able to educate, we fundraise through like the multiple different avenues that we have to get that money to then like compensate people for their time, expertise, and energy that they're putting into things. So that's one way that we do it. And then we also, it's just like a lot of resource and access sharing. So like City Sprouts has served as a fiscal sponsor for us to raise money. So without that fiscal sponsorship, we wouldn't be able to raise money at all. So City Sprouts has shared their resource of access with our organizations. Free Farm, if we have leftover money, we'll purchase from like small farmers like Sweet Selma or Black Chick Farm so that we can put that produce like at our stands. And those are for-profit farms. We've had a little bit of money left over in the past to be able to share that around. We definitely like buy lots of tools and make those available and try to work with folks that maybe don't have other tools, don't have as many tools so that they could borrow them. We have this tiller this year that has probably tilled up like every lot in town at this point. But so just those sorts of things is like, if we have access to something, we just make it really apparent that we have that access. Another thing is that like some organizations that have been around longer, like Free Farm, we've been using the greenhouse at Creighton University for 5 years. And we just make sure that whenever like a new org pops up, that we let them know that that is an option. And that they just have to be able to work with us. But we want to make sure that like everybody gets their foot in the door. I know somewhere on this slide it says don't compete, collaborate. And it's just that same sort of thing. Like we're not gatekeeping anything. So anyways, that's kind of how we share funding. I think I also kind of talked about how we share resources, but Kate, do you want to jump into this accessing land?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I just really quickly, because we don't have a ton of time to get in the nitty gritty, but some of the things that we share, we already talked about land. We talked about how Free Farm has 5 lots and Omaha Sunflower Cooperative has gotten lots and shared those with other entities and things like that. There's also greenhouse sharing that has happened, and that's with Creighton University. There are classroom spaces that we have shared together or utilized. There's also food processing, food storage with Big Muddy Urban Farm, cooking space needed for processing. So we're really working together to find these spaces because we don't have ownership of any of those spaces that we can utilize. Accessing land, we keep in communication. So again, if it's growing out seed or if it's growing produce for market, we are communicating together and making sure that individual farmers have access to land and that our cooperatives have enough access to land. So we're always chatting about that. That's really cool. We also do group purchasing for various things like seed starting materials and tools and equipment that we need. Shared labor, that is happening in every cooperative. You probably get that idea. We're sharing labor to process the seeds, to package the seeds. They're sharing labor at Omaha Sunflower Cooperative to get those markets together, aggregating from different growers. Stephanie mentioned honey, and there's also produce, and that's all coming together at a market stand. They're sharing greenhouse responsibilities for getting all of their plants grown. For Free Farm, I know one of the biggest things that I've heard from Free Farm folks, I'm not a part of Free Farm, but is the watering, that shared labor of making sure that the plots are watered and coordinating all of that together. So those are some ways that the labor is shared both in the field and then also at the market. And those are key elements to keep these cooperatives going. We are now going to talk a little bit about some things that we see are successes, and then on the next slide, challenges. We all know there's a lot of those happening. One of the successes I think with these cooperatives is that, as Alex mentioned, it takes that gatekeeping component out of the mix here. We have open source documents within and outside of our cooperatives. So those are things like curriculum and educational handouts that we use, growing charts, all of our stuff for the seed bank and for the seed cooperative as you participate is available. And we're always interested in training new facilitators to provide the education like seed schools. We have greater transparency, and along with that, I would say trust, as we all know that this collective work can only be done if we're working together to have the biggest impact. And it also allows for that flexibility piece, I think, is another success that, again, we've identified these together, but someone can engage and participate in a way that makes sense for them, and can bring really what their capacity is. They can be honest about that and bring that to the table and participate in a way that uses their skills and also their interests and in which they have the capacity for, recognizing that not everyone has the capacity for every component, and that's okay.
And I feel like that gets us into the challenges though, because that for everybody to be able to participate in the way that I want, that does require a few people to really be able to put in a lot of work to create that structure and create those opportunities for people to be able to plug in for just like 1 or 2 hours. So it is a lot of administrative work. And that is something that I think we really want to get compensated, because it's like, being the glue that holds these co-ops together is like super important. And I feel like it really creates, like, the co-ops themselves are creating access, but the folks who are providing the structure for the co-ops are creating the access for all the people who are participating in the co-op to then create this larger community goal. So that is definitely a hard part, is that a few people really do have to do a lot of work for everybody to get to participate on some level. And so then that kind of, membership can ebb and flow, which if you've got somebody who's able to put in 30 hours a week one year because it's COVID, lockdown, but then the next year they can only put in 3, like that really changes what the capacity of the organization is. So maintaining consistent capacities while also like trying to have an organization that meets everybody where they're at, very difficult. Yeah, and then who is a member can always be difficult, but like with Free Farm, I'm just like, everybody's a member. Like, you know, if you brought produce once, like you're now a member of Free Farm. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what I think, but I'll let other people jump in on what they think are challenges.
I just wanted to quickly mention that I think the paradigm shift can be a challenge, like the paradigm shift of going from, you know, in our workplaces and our jobs, perhaps, or in other areas of our life or in our lives or our upbringing, like this hierarchical model of decision making and, you know, these certain structures. So really looking at those and questioning them and sort of, I like to describe it as like untying those knots and creating something different, creating that collective decision-making space, like really doing the work of listening and like shared labor and valuing different types of labor, right? Like all of these things are outside of the models, I would say, that are the predominant models that we're fed. So sometimes that shifting, like it takes more time. And I would say that that can be a challenge, but I think if, at least personally speaking, like leaning into that process has been so amazing and really beautiful. And I think having structures that are cooperative, like having that structure allows for promoting new leaders and really bringing folks in.
And it's almost like all of the hard things really give way to what all of our successes can be, and like really working to include others and uplifting them to take on the projects that they want to take on. And in a lot of that, it's good. It's good for the cooperative that you're a part of. It's good for the individual that you're supporting, and it builds trust amongst the entire group.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Should we move on to this slide?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm actually, Katie, I'm going to let you kind of speak to some of the top ones. But I think something that when we talked about what would we recommend to folks who are wanting to start cooperative models or work more cooperatively and maybe move from, let's say, like individual farmer or just whatever into a more cooperative model. Structure equals clarity equals ethical functioning. So I guess in a nutshell for me, again, having this, really taking the time to talk about structure, and like maybe Steph, this is something you could chat about, because I know the Omaha Sunflower Cooperative takes a lot of time to be like, how do we function? Like, how do the members work? Like, how do they get compensated? What is labor? What, like having all these conversations is really important, and having a structure of how you're going to function is important. So there's clarity amongst all the members, and then that makes it really transparent. So, and then there can be like accountability there. So what are the roles? How does the funding work? Who's doing the labor? What is labor? I think you're kind of getting the point of what I'm saying, but I think that that really helps cooperatives function well. And missing those steps or those pieces can be to the detriment of the cooperative. And I also think that a beautiful thing about cooperatives is like looking for the opportunity to build skills and folks to engage and build their own skills. So that leadership development piece, as we mentioned. And, you know, I would just say all of our cooperatives really have a mindset of collaboration over competition, and that like we're all, you know, working together to grow more food, grow more seed, share it as much as we can, get it to our community. And, you know, we know that there's like that vision. We're all just doing different pieces of it. So that's what I'd like to say on this.
Yeah, I was just going to speak to that structure piece. When founding Omaha Sunflower Cooperative, I really thought it was important that I didn't put a lot of hard and fast rules about how things were going to operate or work, because I really wanted it to be a collaborative effort. to get those different perspectives on, my needs might not be the same as somebody else's. That has been very challenging. And then I think when you open it up to, it could be anything. Some people get really caught up in trying to figure out what that means. So I think moving forward, I'd like to at least get a baseline of like, here's what we could do, and allow for people to move it however they see fit. But yeah, at least giving people a baseline, I think is really helpful to get that conversation started.
Yeah, I also think for some of the comments on the recommendations of look, what do you look like from the outside in? How visible are you? How inclusive? How transparent? Like asking ourselves these questions. I know that it happens here, and it happens everywhere, that some org or some individual can use the influence that they have, or maybe the space that they have, in ways that are detrimental. And so to really center your progress forward and be like, why are we here? Are we, the other thought is, what is this space approachable? How are we making it approachable? How are we being intentional to reach out to others and include and let them know how we're functioning and what we're doing? It's the transparency piece, and I think all of it is just so much easier understood if those topics are consistently talked about with everyone, inside and outside of the org.
Bye, Alex. Thank you. Alex needed to jump off to attend to some work things, so we will continue on. Katie, do you want to?
Let's see. Yeah, I think for me, that was what I wanted to touch on, and just as feeling like a relatively new person in Omaha in this space, that was a big thing for me. And it is a piece of bravery to step into something new, but in doing so, and being able to have those conversations, it does build the skills of leadership and urban farming. Yeah.
Yeah, so this next slide, we're just share sort of why cooperatives are important to us individually. We're getting so much awesome engagement in the chat. So after this, we are going to open it up to, I think we'll just take those questions and we can verbally respond to them. I guess one of the things I want to wrap up with is why cooperatives are important to me. Back to how difficult it is to be an individual farmer. Like, I can grow what I can grow on my own, right? And market what I can on my own, but working together with other farmers is not only inspiring, but it allows it to really happen. There's none of this could happen. I couldn't engage in this way as a farmer. I'm a first generation farmer. I don't own land. I love sharing resources and I love sharing skills. And I think that's what really brought me into a lot of these cooperatives and the community, is wanting to learn the skills and wanting to do that in community. So I don't have a desire to be isolated, learning new skills out here, and just trying to have this strange tackle the world on my own individualistic mentality, right? We are trying to dismantle that, knowing that those models do not work. I have no issue saying that the family farm model does not work. I have no issue saying that the fact that 98% of land being owned by, white folks does not work, and that the way that we subsidize agriculture and the types of agriculture that we have do not work. So that's why we are creatively moving to, and that's exciting. The process of that for me is important and exciting as I maintain that connection with land.
Yeah, and I think for myself, I would say just participating in a cooperative, and in Omaha, maybe a handful of cooperatives. It's a day for me. It's like, yeah, it's a lesson in almost how to be human without like reading a self-help book. It's kind of, yeah, in some ways it's really alarming for me to be like, I need to learn how to be a human, and I'm an adult, and I need to learn how to like figure out what community can do and is, and how it's a safe space and you can trust people, and some of all of those big scary things that in other places and in other spaces and in for-profit work or paycheck jobs, they don't really necessarily sometimes allow for those things, especially for those things between your neighbor, someone who lives a couple blocks away from you. So yeah, all of that to say is these interactions are always a daily lesson for me, and I think propel me in being a better or a different community member, and one that I would like to live next to. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, I'll let Steph go on.
Okay. I find cooperatives to be important to me because I didn't want to do the nonprofit route. We have several in Omaha, and they're doing good work, but it really isn't moving the needle as far as I could tell on land access and fair housing and things like that. So my thought with cooperatives was that let's do it for ourselves. Let's take on those risks and rewards together, learn together, build the structure that we'd like to see as far as within a capitalist structure. I think it helps to counter that overwhelming sense of individualism in America, that going up toe to toe with large corporations, it's better to do that with a group of people, so that we can be larger than that and overcome those challenges. I think it's an opportunity to build an economy that's based on reciprocity rather than exploitation. It's a place for community members to plug in where they're interested, where they want to be doing these things, where they can learn and grow more and have opportunities to make mistakes. I think cooperatives are very slow progress, at least in my experience. And I think that's a good thing within a system that tells us we have to rapidly be producing all the time, to have room to grow, reflect, learn, build relationships and trust and community is really important. It also makes me feel very close to my heritage. The history of cooperatives involved in liberating Black people, especially in the South, is really rich. And Omaha Sunflower Cooperative actually got its name because of Fannie Lou Hamer's Freedom Farms, which started in Sunflower County in Mississippi. So just giving that nod to these systems, cooperatives have always been a key to advancing equity and social justice.
This I just wanted to mention is an online resource about guiding cooperatives. It's actually a handbook that is really wonderful. So check that out if you are interested in diving into like how to develop a cooperative model. I know we've had a lot of questions about like the nitty gritty and how to make agreements, and how not only like written agreements, but also just like verbally as a cooperative. This is a really, really great resource that I actually learned about a few years when it was presented at the Practical Farmers of Iowa conference. So check this out. It's free. It's for free download. And now we are going to enter into more of a Q&A. So I don't know, Stephanie, maybe Stephanie W. fan, maybe you have some guidance for us on how to best do that with like if people want to unmute.
Yeah, that's great. If people would like to ask questions, feel free to either put them in the chat and I can keep monitoring that chat. And in the meantime, I'll go back through and see if anything didn't get answered there and raise it for you all. Or if you want to unmute yourself, go ahead and do that. And I'll let Kate and Stephanie and Katie, if you have a preference on whether people raise hands or not, let them know. But I'll monitor the chat and bring things up, and people can unmute themselves and ask questions directly as well.
Yeah, I think folks can, if you feel more comfortable, put your questions in the chat. Or feel free to unmute yourself. If we run into like talking over, then we can do raise hands. But yeah, whatever you feel most comfortable with, go ahead and ask any questions you have. We'll try to each take the questions based on the cooperatives we participate in, or we can talk about more general. I'd love to hear from you.
Hey everyone, this is Sarah talking. I would love for you guys to elaborate on my question about how you get out into the community and how the community learns that you even exist. You know, what are your most successful ways at doing that?
I think for myself, in some ways it's a lot of piggybacking, and it's nice to have these 3 cooperatives working together. A lot of that looks like on a social media platform, and we can share each other's information and each other's pursuits. But even then, I don't know if this is the same in other places, but in Omaha, it's very much a small network. Although it's a large city, and it kind of feels really impactful for me, and a good space for getting the word out of just, you know, knowing the 3 other people that I've presented with today, because there are just so many relationships and networks developed there too, and vice versa. We share those each way for sure. But for Omaha, it can feel small, and that's helpful on a social media platform, and also just, you know, being out at a seed share event or seed processing days, or out to dinner and you run into someone you know.
Yeah, I would say I mentioned that if we have events going on, we often make flyers and post those up. I know each of the cooperatives, because I've been to like a coffee shop and I've seen the flyers and I'm like, oh, hey, that's going on. They're having a plant sale, or they're having this event, or here's when the farm stands are all season. So we do some paper flyering for sure. And then I would say, though, one of the things I love is every once in a while, because I'm in Southwest Iowa and I'm not as engaged in Omaha anymore. And so, and then, you know, there's other like folks that are, you know, rural farmers that are also involved. So one thing I really love is that we do a lot of like, you know, just texting or calling. Like, it's kind of, I don't know what the word churchy is coming up to me, but for me, I mean, but just like this, like, hey, guess what, we're having seed processing and it's going on this weekend and I really want you to be there, you know. And Alex isn't here right now, but I would just say Alex is really good at doing this and just like reminding folks of how to engage and what's going on. And I mean, we use those really simple ways of like a phone call or shooting an email. Hey, you know, we have this you know, fundraiser for Free Farm that's coming up, you know, and I know I just got like a Facebook message about it or something. So I think I like to remember to utilize those direct asks, right? Utilize those direct connections, like reach out to someone individually, because in this world of media and oversaturation and overstimulation, sometimes it's just better to like reach out to someone with your voice and say, hey, like this thing's going on and I know you're interested in it and I'd love to see you there.
Yeah, I think for at least the co-op, it was just talking to a lot of folks in our networks, sharing our thoughts and ideas, and then going to market, showing up in the community physically was a big one. There was a question in the chat. It is a big one. I'm going to try to answer it to the best of my ability. There really isn't a distinction between businesses and community members right now in Omaha Sunflower Cooperative. Everybody just contributes what they can. We keep track of what produce was brought to the market so that we can say, oh, in our tablet and our square, this produce came from Manifest Acres. So 15% of their sales will go back into the cooperative, and then the farmer takes the rest of that profit. The idea is that we're all sharing time going to market. So it's on a rotating schedule so that a farmer doesn't have to be at market every single week. They can just drop off their produce and somebody else is selling for them. So that's kind of the benefit there. Resource distribution, we didn't have to do a whole lot of that this year. People kind of had the things that they needed. We were able to get a $500 grant. One of our members wrote for us. So there'll be tools that we'll share when we come together for work days. If we needed to purchase anything that was voted on over $50, we would vote on that. We don't have any paid positions within the cooperative at this time. It's all volunteer based. As we get rolling, we would love to in the future have some actual paid employment. But for right now, we're just kind of figuring things out. Yeah, I don't know if that answers that. I mean, really, we're still growing. We're still very much baby. We're still figuring out all those questions, which are huge. There's no really good roadmap to how to operate outside of capitalism in that way, but we're figuring it out.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's like really intriguing and dope, and like the leap of trust that it must have taken to go in and just get started doing that without having a lot of formal paperwork or structuring. Like this community of Black growers here in Atlanta is really interested in figuring out how we can collectively work together instead of working so hard separately and in silos. And I have my own farm now, but my previous employer just turned his 10-year plus business into a worker-owned co-op. So I got to kind of watch that process develop and unfold. But it's inspiring to hear that y'all were able to do it without a lot of formality and just kind of get in there and get started. Thank you.
Yeah, it was very much, I was like, Alex, do you want to just do something? We've been talking about this for so long. Do you want to just do it? So yeah.
And so you guys started with like collective farm stands, just kind of aggregating produce and then rotating. That is really interesting because that's kind of what we've been talking about. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, Denise, do you want to go ahead with your question?
Just go to bed.
Sure. Are there other examples of what you're doing, either all three examples that you've given us today that you're connected with in other parts of the country? You guys are freewheeling and doing it on your own. I just think it's absolutely wonderful. And I think it's a model that can work. And especially I think looking at land access. I mean, that's the big issue. And how is it that you're able to, and you're urban, I know I'm rural, but I think they're in the outskirts of urban, there are probably possibilities with land access, but I mean, that's another thing on a plate of a very full plate. So I'm just kind of throwing those out for questions.
Yeah, I think the co-op would love to get some more rural land to grow on. We were very fortunate this year that we were gifted almost an acre from City Sprouts. Land access it's hard. It's hard to get it. And then I think we're finding too is now that we have it, making sure that we can keep it is also huge because we're not a nonprofit, so we can't we'll have to pay taxes on it. So we'll have to figure all of that out this year, which is really fun. Yeah, I don't know. Anybody else on land access? And it's important for the Sunflower Co-op to own it. We want to own.
Yeah, I think for Free Farm, yeah, it's interesting. We are also a nonprofit, or not a nonprofit. So we really do, we rent land from the city of Omaha. They do like garden leases, like $1. You sign a little lease and it's like $1 that I've never given the city. I've just given them my signature to be able to use this plot of land. But yeah, I recently have come to know how distant my understanding of land use within the city and the city terms is. I would love to know more in ways. I'm a part of a fellowship through the Center of Rural Affairs right now that is helping me to like realize these things that I don't know and could look at differently. But also I think Lincoln, I just heard of Lincoln the other day, someone who lives there talking about their cooperation with the city in urban land use for agriculture. And it was really inspiring to hear those things and also be like, what office do I need to step into in Omaha? And like, who do I need to sit down with and have all the combos with? But yeah, I think there's always a way to make something work, especially with the land, whether it's rural or urban. And I think we don't always have a lot of time to think about it, but possibilities always exist. And like we've been saying previously, some things just happen slowly, but then they happen fast.
Yeah, and I can speak a little bit to land access, and then what was the first part of the question?
Networking with other organizations.
Oh yeah, okay. I want to speak a little,
Yeah.
to that piece. So I guess just like over time, I've been really inspired by things that are going, like I know Des Moines has a lot of cooperative farming going on. So if you're engaged in that or know that area or near there, check that out. And then also like Iowa City area and then Decorah. So I guess for me, like as far as cooperative farming, so just like individuals coming together to grow, aggregate, market, and sell together. Those are sort of models that and friends that I have that I saw were doing it, and it's really successful and working. And there's less of that going on in Nebraska. There's less of that going on in the Nebraska side. So those are models. And then when Alex and I went to Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance to the training, that's where we met farmers from all across the country who were cooperative farming and doing cooperative seed saving. So that was what really inspired us specifically. There was a farmer there who started a seed cooperative in Idaho called the Snake River Valley Seed Cooperative. So check them out. And that's really what inspired the model of Blazing Star Seed Cooperative. There's also Seeds Trust and True Love Seeds. Please check True Love Seeds out. They are, I would say, as we're developing Blazing Star, we really look to, like, we go and we see what True Love Seeds is doing, and they have really moved to a model where they're able to, when farmers bring their seed, I laid out in the chat kind of how Blazing Star is functioning now, and I know we want to keep growing it, but farmers actually get compensated for their seed because they actually are able to sell some of their seed commercially. So I know that's something that the cooperative has chatted about for a while, like how can seed saving become an additional income source for growers? And so, yeah, those are all things we're kind of looking at and where we seek inspiration. And then on the land access side, I know that across the board, you know, a lot of us are younger farmers. A lot of us are first generation farmers. And so we are absolutely looking for land, and absolutely, I think cooperative purchase with support from folks that want to invest in what we're doing is the way. And we need that because we cannot access land. And we all know that that situation is actually getting worse right now. So.
And I'll flag for y'all that we have a question in the chat from Kitty. They ask, what sort of agroecological practices do you use to manage soil fertility? Are all or most areas organically managed? What about regenerative practices and any work with indigenous ways of knowing, i.e. traditional ecological knowledge?
I utilize in my own farm a practice from the Ovambo people in Africa, which is these mounded rows, 4 foot by, or however long you want to make them, composting, just getting into more regenerative agriculture in the sense of permaculture with brambles and trees and the like. We have recently put on biochar that we were able to get from through a connection from City Sprouts. You know, we don't use any kind of mechanized tools. It's all hand tools, broad forks. We don't use pesticides or herbicides or any of that. We thankfully haven't had to do anything with as far as pest management, because we use those integrated systems of, you know, providing habitat for predator insects and keeping systems as ecologically intact with the earth. But it is something that within the Omaha Sunflower Cooperative, we do need to make, like, here's our standard of agreement. If you are going to be a member of the cooperative and contribute produce, this is what that looks like. So as we move forward, that's something that we'll be putting together. Yeah, anybody else have insight into that?
Yeah, I think for Free Farm, I know that we have a pretty like standardized way of like building up our beds and kind of putting everything to sleep in the winter. And a lot of that does look like familiar things like compost, wood chips, cardboard and burlap mulching for weeds. But I know for myself, I have a lot of learning to still do in this realm, and especially with soil fertility. I do know that you know, our areas, we don't apply anything on our produce or our spaces. So in that way, it's all, yeah, organic, naturally managed. But the learning in soil fertility that I have to do is still, I know, deep. And I really look for the opportunities to learn more. And both from, you know, there's a fear, I think maybe in me, that like reaching out to an institution or an organization is just like, well, that's just like conventional, or like they might be leading me down the wrong path, so I might rather have a conversation with someone. But yeah, some deeper knowledge in soil fertility, especially wanting to look into cycles of cover cropping and really like actually not disturbing the soil, not turning it over. Because yeah, those are things that as an observant person, I'm putting a shovel in the ground and then a clod of dirt comes up and I just like look at it and I'm like, oh man, I feel like I should put you back, or like, it's just, it's things like that. But that's a great question, and in this space, something to be really mindful of, where I feel like there's always learning to be done.
Thanks both. And
I just wanted
sorry,
to say,
Stephanie.
oh, you're fine. This book, The One Straw Revolution by Fukuoka, is awesome. It talks a lot about cover cropping and laying down straw and like doing as little to your natural environment as possible. It's awesome. Yeah, I'm going through it. I'm just like, this is amazing. I wish I would have read this forever ago. So moving forward, it's something that I want to make sure I'm integrating into how I do things. The cooperative has used cover crop a little bit in the past too, just to kind of manage space that we weren't utilizing. So it is something that we were trying to put more into practice as well.
Well, thank you all so much. This discussion has been amazing. I want to give you a minute to put in any last thoughts, and then in a few minutes here, we're going to head over to the executive director's address and to see our award ceremony. So thank you all again. I'll let folks say a final word, and then let's quote unquote head over to the next question.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining our session and all your wonderful questions. We really appreciate it. We had fun putting this together.
Yes, thank you so much. Really appreciate the platform and the opportunity to engage.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for hanging out with us.
Right. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.